Welcome back to GAA Fan TV. Dublin obviously got the victory over Cork earlier today, and of course there was a whole host of results from the weekend. We've seen the likes of obviously Kerry get a big result against Mayo, Galway beat Tyrone, and plenty of other results. We're obviously here to review all the weekend's action, review all the weekend's talking points. Certainly a lot to discuss, a lot to break down. So cheers anyone for tuning in. As always, Matthew, how's life with yourself since earlier today and the loss to Dublin? Have you got over a bit more now, or are you still very much lamenting that late Brian Hurley chance?
Yeah. I suppose so. Well, it's a difficult one, Aaron, because like at the start of the game, we were thinking we're going to get beaten by Dublin. It's all about the performance and all that, and most aspects of the performance was excellent from Cork today. And a lot of Cork fans, even on social media after it, I'm looking through it straight after it, and they're positive, a lot of positives to take. But the main thing was, and rarely stats get brought into this and stuff like that, but the wides count for Cork today was dreadful, 11 wides. And we missed some big chances. And I suppose you could say all you want about the Maguire red card, about the Maurice Shanley goal in the first half, should have stood and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, 11 wides and against Dublin isn't going to be good enough to beat them. Look, there's learnings, and John Cleary would know that, the players would know that. But we go on to next week against Limerick, and the key thing is to win against Limerick, because if we don't do that, all the good work from today will go down the drain yet again. So, dust ourselves down, go on to next week, and we'll see where it takes us.
100%. Well, certainly a lot to discuss in regards to Cork and Dublin. We will get onto that maybe a little bit later on. Starting off with the Division 1 action, and maybe looking at the game on Saturday night. So it was Mayo 2-14, Kerry 1-10. Big result for Mayo. Obviously a huge result to go and beat the All-Ireland champions in the way that they did in the end by 7 points. Kerry got a late goal and a couple of late points to make this scoreline a little bit more, I suppose, respectable. But generally speaking, it was a fairly dominant victory for the men in green and red.
It was, yeah. And Kerry, they were way off in the first half without the influence of Clifford and O'Shea. Mayo, yeah, they're going along nicely, aren't they? Like we said earlier on the live stream, the Mayo probably are the only team that have really impressed so far, other than Roscommon. We'll get onto them later, but I think Roscommon are a bit below where Mayo hope to be. I think Mayo, they're motoring along nicely. Ryan O'Donoghue, excellent again last night. James Carr, Jordan Flynn again, 4 shots, four converted. What a performance. And he's worked tirelessly all over the field, was outstanding. Jordan O'Connor, when he was on the pitch in the first half, was brilliant again. Colin Reap was very good for Mayo as well. And it was an overall dominant performance from them. Like usually against like Kerry, like they were mentioning TG Carr last night, that they lost 3 times to Kerry, and that would have hurt Mayo badly, and only one of them was really a tight game down in Tralee. The rest of them, both in Croke Park, Kerry wiped the floor with them. So, it's a confidence booster as well for this Mayo team. Aidan O'Shea performed pretty good as well. So, yeah, all positives for Mayo. Kevin McStay seems to be doing a good job there. And, the loose ends from the game against Armagh, Galway seem to be fixed as well. So, they aren't quite the finished article yet, but I'd be very optimistic if I was a Mayo fan looking at last night. They performed excellently.
Yeah, and it's their first win against Kerry as well since the league final, actually in 2019, which is a long time ago now when you think about it, like nearly 4 years. So quite a long time since Mayo have obviously beaten Kerry. So huge in that regards. And I suppose, like as you were saying there, like the depth in Mayo's squad, like Jordan Flynn, outstanding. They seem to finally be getting the best out of Aidan O'Shea, and when you're able to bring lads like Cillian O'Connor off the bench with about 10 minutes to go, like Mayo's depth in their squad, like if they can be injury free, like they've got a very good squad and better than most in the country.
They do, and I think their management team has added to that as well, with McStay and with Liam McHale there, the backroom team as well, and Stephen Rochford, of course. It's almost like the dream backroom team for that Mayo squad. And when you look at the players even to come back, like Aidan Arm wasn't playing last night, Cillian O'Connor was coming off the bench, Jordan O'Connor went off injured, like even Bob Toohey coming on, I thought was outstanding at centre forward, very good. player coming through the ranks there. You have Jack Carney, like Darren McKay didn't get involved, and I still think he's a very good player. Tommy Conroy, he still has to come back into the team as well. So when you look at the names rolling down the list for this Mayo team, I think they look very good for an All-Ireland. Like, it's very tough to say when we always say this about Mayo. Is there going to be a collapse coming and stuff like that? It didn't look that way last night. We'll see when push comes to shove once the championship comes along. And let's not forget in Connacht, they have to go through Roscommon and then Galway to get even to a Connacht final. So that's going to be a hard job in itself. But yeah, very good signs for Mayo. They performed excellent last night. But let's not get ahead of ourselves as well. Like, this was a Kerry team without Sean O'Shea and David Clifford in the first half. They were without Shane Ryan in goal. So it's not really a Kerry team fully cooked just yet. So we'll have to see how they progress. But yeah, good signs for Mayo and more players to come back as well, like Conroy. So all's on the up for this Mayo team. And yeah, I'm delighted for them.
Yeah, and like, I think maybe that's gone unnoticed as well. Like, we were talking about how well they looked attacking wise with Jordan Flynn and Aidan O'Shea, and obviously James Carr as well, who finished the day with 1-2. But defensively as well, like, when you think of the changes in their defensive line this year, like, no Lee Keegan, no Oisin Mullen, looks like Colm Reap is now the number one between the sticks as opposed to Robbie Henley, unless he's going to come back at some stage. I'm not entirely sure, but you think of all the changes defensively, and they were so solid in the first half. And I know Kerry were fairly abject and really didn't offer much at all until probably the final 15 to 20 minutes. But like, Mayo defensively as well, like, they look very well coached and very well set up. And like, that's the best I've seen Mayo defensively for a long time.
Exactly so, and you look at Ian Hessian has transformed as a player. Jack Hine wasn't playing the other night, and he was very good for UL in the Sigerson Cup. You still have them players coming through the ranks. Rory Brickenden seems to be doing well at full back, and he had a few bouts with David Clifford as well, so always great to see. Donegal McHugh has done very well as well. Stephen Cohen has slotted well, and one player that I actually wanted to mention, I was going to mention him on my social medias last night, Conor Loftus at centre back. Like, I think he turned over the ball maybe 4 times in the first half. He was outstanding. And a lot of people were actually questioning, why is McStay persisting to put Conor Loftus at centre back? What kind of experiment is this going to be? But you could see it last night. He's a tough tackler. He never gives up. He's a very athletic player as well for going forward. So I think Mayo look very good for. Like, they have 2 good goalkeepers as well. Reap has done well in the last few games. And Henley, I'd rate as one of the best keepers in Ireland at the moment. So yeah, I think Mayo are in a very good stand at the moment. You have Matty Ruan, who we didn't mention as well. Excellent performance by him. So yeah, Mayo look very, very good. They have players coming back into the team as well. Kevin McStay seems to have them well coached. So yeah, all's on the up for Mayo, and yeah, maybe there could be a genuine Sam Maguire push this season, because you look at Kerry, if they get an injury with David Clifford and Sean O'Shea, Armagh didn't really perform well today. Dublin got lucky against the likes of Cork and Kildare. So an All-Ireland could be there for Mayo. I know it's early days, yes. It's Mayo fans don't want me to hype up their team and stuff like that, but it's early signs and it's good signs so far.
Yeah, and I suppose from a Kerry perspective then, like, I mean, as you said there, like, David Clifford and Sean O'Shea came on at half-time, and you could see the notable difference when those two came on in Kerry's attack. But I mean, is there much worry for Kerry at this early stage? 2 defeats in their opening 3 games. Hearing some murmurings on Twitter that maybe they might be in a possible relegation battle if they don't go out and win next week. But what are your thoughts? Like, do you think is there panic stations just yet for the Kingdom, or is this just a case of there's a lot of lads missing, and following on from their All-Ireland success last year and club commitments and everything else, there was bound to maybe be a slight hangover throughout the league?
Yeah, I think the latter, definitely. Like, I know David Clifford and Sean O'Shea, they've been excellent. When they came on last night, there was a noticeable difference. For example, Clifford hit 3 shots and 3 points, and you can't get much better than that. He got a yellow card as well, to his credit, so fair play to him. But yeah, like, they performed well coming on. Sean O'Shea and David Clifford, they kind of changed the game. But the player who I said on this very channel that Kerry would miss the most, and it proved last night, I thought, Shane Ryan. Like, when you look at the one kick out Kerry lost through Shane Murphy, it ended up in the back of the net through Ryan O'Donoghue. So, like, I just think he makes the Kerry team tick. I think he's a very good shot stopper. He's very good at distributing the ball. He's very good at kicking out the ball. I almost like a Rolls Royce of a goalkeeper, Shane Ryan, and it kind of showed last season. Shane Murphy, I don't think is up to that level just yet. They still have some players in and around the team, like Thomas Sullivan was there last night. They still have Jason Foley and Ty Morley in their Pat Warren. They found a solution, they were saying on social media last night, to Kieran Donaghy in Barry O'Sullivan, who got the goal last night. So, there's some tiny positives for Kerry, I suppose, but the main negatives I'd see is probably the forwards like Darragh Roach and Donal O'Sullivan, who we're talking on this channel last week about. They didn't step up, really. Like Donal O'Sullivan, for example, he was largely anonymous in the first half and was brought off. I know he's an excellent player and all that, but that was a huge acid test from Saturday night. And he didn't do well at all. Darragh Roach wasn't in the game, really. Only kicked a few shots and a few of the wayward. Darragh Monaghan, I think, missed about 3 or 4 shots, and that was very unlike him. So, there's still Paul Gain and Stephen O'Brien to come back as well. They're experienced players, of course, in that Kerry side. So, I still think there's not reason to panic. Like, they beat Monaghan. I think like 1 or 2 more wins should do it. But I think in terms of winning a league title, in terms of doing a clean sweep this year, Kerry won't do it because they've lost 2 games. And I think that is just about too much to get to a league final at this stage.
Yeah, like, and I suppose from a Kerry perspective, as we were saying there, like, as you alluded to there, like their fullback line, they had more or less their best fullback line, and Tom O'Sullivan, Jason Foley, Graham O'Sullivan, and obviously Jason Foley was playing, Paul Murphy was playing. Fair enough, they didn't have Shane Ryan at their disposal, but you're looking at it from a Kerry perspective and thinking like that Paddy Tally effect of Kerry's defence, which was so prominent last year when they conceded just 2 goals in the league and championship. They conceded 2 goals in this game, and defensively they didn't look their usual selves. So that'll certainly be cause for concern.
I suppose it will, yeah, but to follow on for that point, between McGrath Cup and the league, Kerry only conceded goals, as far as I remember, against Cork and against Mayo. That's 2 games. They didn't concede a goal against Monaghan and Donegal. So there comes a time, maybe you have to credit Mayo for the way they attacked, the way they finished those goal chances, rather than focusing on Kerry. And Shane Ryan, like, the goalkeeper is so important nowadays because he organises the back line and stuff like that. Like, Shane Ryan would have been, the consistent vocal voice last season. Shane Murphy isn't that voice this season. I'm sorry, he's just a sub-goalkeeper. So I think they badly missed Shane Ryan. Maybe it does question Jason Foley and Ty Morley and Thomas Sullivan and Graham O'Sullivan, all them players. But like, I usually question Kerry's defence. You know me on this channel, I criticise Kerry defences in years gone by and stuff like that. But last night I just had to credit Mayo's attack, really. Kerry's defence only made 1 clear error last night, and that was the kick out. And who was that by? The sub-goalkeeper. That's the problem, really, I think. So, like I more so credit Mayo's attack more than Kerry's defence. And I think it's more crucial that Kerry get Shane Ryan back to the team rather than David Clifford and Sean O'Shea. I know that's an unpopular opinion, probably will be amongst Kerry fans, but that's just my belief. I think Shane Ryan is probably the keeper that Kerry badly need.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely a lot for the Kingdom to work on, and certainly a lot to be positive for from a Mayo perspective. Moving on then, it was Roscommon 112, Tyrone 12 points, or Armagh 12 points, actually, I should say. I'll make a slight correction there. They obviously already beat Tyrone, so I'm getting a bit mixed up there. But nonetheless, 3 wins from 3 for the Rossies, and absolutely huge. I mean, 100% record. I mean, not many would have predicted that at the start of the year. Like, they were one of the favourites for relegation, as we very well know. So the fact they've gone and won 3 games from 3, like, they're on fire at the moment.
They are on fire, yeah. It's a very good showing for Roscommon. I watched this, the first game I actually watched them in full. This game against Armagh, they were outstanding. I thought they were very good. Like, especially like in the first half, Armagh seemed to be shooting the lights out. Jason Duffy hitting 3 shots from 3. I think it was 3 or 4 shots or whatever. It was 3 points. Excellent performance from him in the first half. And Roscommon still stuck in there when they were playing particularly badly. Like, they were missing a few pot shots in the first half, but I suppose it is a sign of a good team to just stick in there when things are going wrong, and that's what Roscommon did in the first half. They went into the second half, they won a penalty, and then in the Smith converted, and they controlled the game throughout then. The Armagh seemed to be, Armagh seemed to lose the heads quite a lot today. I don't know, is that a common theme about Armagh's footballers, but they do have outstanding players, but like, it kind of just shows if you could get a lead on this Armagh team, if you could push their buttons, maybe there could be a few positives coming out of it. But for Roscommon's point of view, they didn't start Darragh Craig, I don't think, in this game. They didn't start Conor Cox, and they still won the game. And they're two arguably of their most league forwards. So pretty good showing from Roscommon, very good showing indeed. And 3 wins from 3. And the fact they haven't even played Monaghan yet, I think they're playing Monaghan next. So that could be 4 wins from 4. That's a brilliant showing for Roscommon. And I think Davy Burke is an inspired appointment. I think Kildare fans will be getting sick of their mouths over this, that he went to Roscommon over Kildare. But pretty good showing from Roscommon. 3 wins from 3. You can't ask for much more than that.
Yeah, like and how far could they, like looking at Roscommon, as we said, like 3 wins from 3. Maybe they weren't at their brilliant best today, and even at times against Galway, from what I heard, they weren't particularly brilliant in that game. But it just seems that grit and determination and that fighting spirit, maybe that was missing with Roscommon. Like, I always looked at Roscommon as a team that technically had a lot of very, very good footballers, but it seems now that physically they've hugely improved. Defensively, very, very well set up. No goals conceded in their first 3 games. And in terms of grit and determination, like they have it in abundance, and it's clear to see Davy Burke's imprint all over this team.
It is now, and I think they conceded a goal through Kieran McGeary against Tyrone, but still 1 goal in 3 games. That's a pretty good showing in fairness to them. And from my calculations, I think they've scored 4 goals in 3 games as well. So that's a pretty good showing as well in front of goal. And there's a lot of spread scores on the Roscommon team over the last 3 games or so. Like, you look at Dermot Murtagh, Kieran Murtagh, Darragh Craig, Ben O'Carroll, who's got, I think, 1-6 from play in 3 games. That's a pretty good showing. He's got 2 points from play when he wasn't at his brilliant best today as well. So very good showing from him. Conor Cox has only scored 2 points for Roscommon in this league campaign. And usually Roscommon will rely heavily on the Conor Cox over the last few seasons. So it kind of shows the amount of strength and depth that Roscommon have. Like, and a lot of people are actually worried about Roscommon losing Ultan Harney during the winter. And you look at Tiger O'Rourke, he stepped into that role brilliantly, in fairness to him. Conor Carroll in goal has been brilliant. Brian Stack at centre-back. I think Conor Daly, Niall Daly have been excellent. Conor Hussey's been very good as well. So, there's been good performances all over the field for Roscommon, and they've very good footballers. And it seems this year they're piecing it all together very nicely. So, I think Roscommon, I know we say this about these Roscommon teams every single year when they perform well in the league. Roscommon are going to have an outstanding year. I genuinely believe it, though, with this team, because you look at the players all over the field, there's a lot of options. There's a lot of options off the bench. Like Keane McKeown, for example, was an up-and-coming player for Roscommon last year, and he can't get a game in this team. Paul Kerry, who's very good for Porter Pearson's in the club championship, can't get a game either. So there's some very good players coming off the bench as well. There's good strength and depth, and for a county of Roscommon size, I think that's applaudable. It's a brilliant achievement from everybody in Roscommon GA, and I think they'll genuinely have a very, very good year this season.
Yeah, and I don't want to be too reactionary here, but do you think Roscommon could be dark horses maybe for even an All-Ireland? I mean, when you look at the teams they've beaten so far, and the fact that they beat Galway, they beat Tyrone, 2 sides that, like Galway obviously were in the All-Ireland final last year, Tyrone won the All-Ireland 2 years ago, and obviously Armagh, who are an up-and-coming team that a lot of people look at to be, potential favourites for an All-Ireland themselves. So, like, I know Tyrone have maybe had players missing, Galway have maybe had players missing, Tyrone are, we'll get onto them a little bit later, seem to be in a bit of a rut at the moment. And obviously Armagh, maybe not at their brilliant best today, but you look at it and you think, when you look at how well Roscommon have started, considering how early it is in the Davy Burke era, as you said, maybe Keane McKeown to come back in, a few other lads to come back in, like if Galway and Mayo are not that far away, then Roscommon should not be far away.
They shouldn't, no. Definitely not. Like, you look, but the trouble is really, you look at the size of the Connacht draw. A lot of them teams, Galway, Mayo, Roscommon, will be punching lobes out of each other, really. and that will have a negative effect as the championship goes on, especially with more games there. But like when you look, the table doesn't lie. When you look at Division 1 at the moment, the top 3 teams are all Connacht. So maybe the football stronghold is in Connacht. You know, we were talking about Ulster being strong. You look at, we were saying Munster with Clare, statistically as well with Cork, Clare and Kerry in the quarterfinals last year. But when you look at Connacht, all 3 of those sides could be up there with the All-Ireland. I think for Roscommon, I think it's a year too soon, in all honesty. I do think they have excellent players all over the field. They've a good manager, Davy Burke. They've good up-and-coming players. They've good strength and depth. But I just think, like Armagh last year, and like Galway maybe last year as well, losing the final to Kerry, and Derry as well in the semi-final, they'll do well this season, reach a semi-final, maybe even an All-Ireland final. But I think for the calibre of Roscommon at the moment, I think this year is a year too soon for them to win the All-Ireland, in all honesty. But the signs are good for an All-Ireland the next few seasons. And imagine if an All-Ireland goes down to Roscommon. That'd be unbelievable scenes. I can't imagine the amount of scenes there would be in that part of the world, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, that would be one of the greatest underdog stories of all time. I think if Roscommon managed to somehow do that. But like I was just thinking about it earlier, like if Mayo fans are dreaming about a potential Sam Maguire, and you know, looking at Galway's progress in the last couple of years, like, and I've always said, I even said last year that Roscommon could possibly be dark horses, because I think they've got a very, very good squad, and now they have the manager to back them up. Looking at Armagh briefly, maybe just to finish up on them, like disappointing performance from their perspective. And when you look at their 3 performances as a whole, like against Monaghan, they weren't overly brilliant. Like good moments against Mayo, but some bad moments as well. So it does seem a little bit inconsistent for them, but you would expect them to get it out of their system at some stage the more this league goes on.
You'd have to, yeah. And at the start of the league, I predicted them to finish first. I think they still can. Like when you look at the league games, there's to come, like 3 points. I think they've played Monaghan already. I think they'll beat Donegal anyway. They'll probably beat Tyrone as well, because Tyrone are in some sort of a rut. Galway will be a massive game, and you know the rivalry between those 2 counties. They've Kerry next, though. That's going to be a very, very difficult game for them. I think that's down to 3. Correct me if I'm wrong now, Aaron. So that would be a very, very difficult game for Armagh to get 2 points in. But look, I wouldn't be panicking. Like Armagh, like a trophy would be nice. And an appearance in Croke Park would be nice as well to win a league title. But I think the main thing for Armagh is to win an Ulster title. We go on about Armagh every single year, but they haven't won an Ulster title since 2008. They haven't been in the final since that season. Like Antrim and Fermanagh and Down have been in the final more recently than Armagh. So I think the Armagh's main aim is to get to a provincial final. And if they get a league final, good for them. But I don't think Armagh will be too fussed about this result. I think the main thing is the Ulster Championship. And in terms of staying in this division, which will be another big aim, I think Armagh are on set to do that. 3 points. They still have Donegal to come as well. I think they've survived more or less.
Yeah, moving on then, it was Galway, 16 points, Tyrone, 13 points in Galway. Good win for Galway in the end. I watched the deferred coverage on TG Cahir, and I felt that Galway always really kept Tyrone at arm's length. Like, you know, they were fairly comfortable. Tyrone maybe narrowed the gap down at different times, but generally speaking, it was a good win for Galway, a much needed win, given the fact they hadn't won their opening 2 games. And considering they still don't have Shane Walsh, Damien Comer is obviously out with an injury. You know, they have players like Matthew Tierney and Cathal Sweeney stepping up. So good win from a tribesman perspective.
Yeah, good enough win for them. Like it was always going to be a tough game for Galway today. Like I think there was a lot of pressure on them, considering what happened in the last 2 games. They performed pretty poorly against Roscommon and against Mayo. They still got 1 point out of them, so it wasn't all doom and gloom, but they still had to grind out victory, and they did. Like without Damien Comer, as I said, Shane Walsh wasn't there either today. Like Ian Burke started, so that was a positive for Galway, I guess. Kelly McDaid was at centre forward, which was an interesting move from Pádraig Joyce. Like when you look, Peter Cook was midfield with Paul Conroy. So maybe Galway will try that kind of triangle formation this season. Like Matthew Tierney, 6 points, 3 for play. Very good performance from him, and he's always a good footballer that always steps up to the play. Paul Conroy with 3 points as well. Very good performance. And Cathal Sweeney coming on really won it for them. in the end. It was a 3-point margin. He got 3 points off the bench, so all good for Galway at the moment. And I think they're on the road to survival now, so a very crucial win for Galway there. But Tyrone, yet again, it's another week where we ask questions about the temperaments of this Tyrone team as well. Like another loss after what seemed to be a positive win against Donegal. They're on another downer, it's a.
Yeah, like and from watching it as well, like there just doesn't seem to be that kick from Tyrone. Like even in the final, like 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, like they weren't really throwing the kitchen sink at it or like creating numerous goal chances. Like it seemed like they were nearly fairly content to actually come out with a defeat. And it just seems like Tyrone really don't seem that bothered, in my opinion. Like they don't really seem bothered really whether they win or whether they lose. And as you said, like it was a good result against Donegal, but like, yeah, just very, very abject again. And look, it's, Galway are a good side and they still have plenty of time to turn this one around. But you're looking at it and thinking it does look a little bit worrying from a Tyrone perspective.
It does, yeah. And I suppose the players leaving as well, leaving the panel, certain players like Paul Donaghy, Tiernan McCann. And when you look at the performances as well, there doesn't seem to be an urge about them. I don't know what it is. It's just kind of strange to see them like this. Like they're bringing the new players. Like I've seen Rory Canavan from the match report actually came on late in the game. But you'd question like if they're chasing 2 points in June, why are you bringing him on in the 56th minute? So yeah, there's all sorts of questions about Tyrone at the moment. Joe Goose came on as well. They're starting to bring in the younger players really, but like maybe they're bringing the younger players too soon when the older players seem to be leaving the panel consistently. So like that's a pretty bad statistic there. Like it seemed to me again today, Darren McCurry was the main scorer and Darragh Canavan to a lesser extent, and McShane had a few bright sparks, but that was about it for Tyrone. And I really worried about them going down, especially we'll get to Monaghan Donegal in a minute, but especially with Monaghan's result today, I'd really worry about Tyrone in this division. That Monaghan-Tyrone game is going to be so crucial and to see who stays up. But yeah, it's another loss for Tyrone, and the question is, like, can they bounce back like the Donegal game, or will they wallow in self-pity?
Yeah, like it is an interesting point, all right, because like beaten on the opening day, as we said, by Roscommon, and now they've obviously lost this one as well away to Galway. Like, I mean, could it be a case that they're just coming up against good opposition in Galway and Roscommon, and maybe things just haven't quite clicked into gear? Like it's still early days in the league, or like I suppose when you look at it last year, like it was very, very worrying. So like it's a hard one to kind of put your finger on it.
It is, yeah. Like you would have expected to bounce back from Tyrone after last season, and it doesn't seem to be that way at the moment. Like people were kind of hopeful in the McKenna Cup up until the Derry game, and they just flat deceived in that game. And then 2 of the 3 games in the league, they've been pretty average, really. Like after the Roscommon game, they were very, very poor. Got a lucky goal from Ciarán McGeary. Against Galway, there was nothing in them. And Donegal, but we see Donegal in the league against Kerry, they haven't scored a goal in the league. So is that really an achievement, beating a Donegal team on the way down? So like there's questions about Tyrone, and I think like the more I talk about this now, Aaron, the more I think Monaghan are going to pull another Houdini act at it, because Tyrone look very, very poor. Donegal awful. So like I would actually back Monaghan. Like, again, Monaghan are going to stay up in Division 1, I'd say, because I can't see how Tyrone get a kick into them. And yeah, it looks pretty bleak for Tyrone at the moment, and this performance kind of epitomises it.
Yeah, like and Monaghan actually played Tyrone on the second last day of the season at home. So I mean, how much of a crucial game that could potentially be as well. Like, and play Mayo away on the final day, which would be tough. But who knows? Maybe Mayo might have a league final wrapped up by then, or something of that nature. So it'd be interesting to see what happens there. And speaking of Monaghan, they did get that big victory against Donegal, the first win of the Vinnie Corey era. They win 120 to 15 points. Very, very comprehensive result in the end, and like 8 points against Donegal. I mean, considering these two, like, are expected to be in around the relegation battle, to beat a relegation rival by 8 points, that's quite a statement.
It is now, yeah, and we were talking during the week. We were actually, I think both of us back Monaghan, correct me if I'm wrong, no, but it was a very, very good win for Monaghan. And yeah, I didn't expect it to be that much of a margin. It probably shows Monaghan in the first half against Kerry, they actually performed pretty well, but just missed a few chances. And Kerry just, let loose in the second half. Against Armagh, like a lot of people didn't really take notice of it, but Monaghan put up a good performance in that game. And I suppose this performance against Donegal was coming, scoring 120. Like scoring 120 in a game between two Ulster counties, that can't go unnoticed. Excellent performance from them. And I've seen Mr. Conor McManus come back into the team as well, scoring 2 marks today. Jack McCarron also came back into the team. So they seem to be coming back at the right time. And that's a good sign for Monaghan going forward. Yeah, very good showing. And I think they will probably stay up again because Tyrone look as bad as them. Donegal, like, it seems to be such a negative vibe around Donegal football at the moment. Like, Paddy McBrearty off injured. There doesn't seem to be a spark. They haven't scored a goal yet. There hasn't been a player for Donegal to score 10 points or over. Their highest scorer is Shane O'Donnell with 8 points. To be fair to him, that's a good tally from him in 3 games. But you'd expect more of Donegal for a Division 1 team. I mean, they're on the way down, it's hard. I think Michael Murphy's retirement and Paddy McBrearty's injury has probably foreshadowed Donegal's prospects in the next few seasons. And I think once they go down to Division 2, I think they could stay there for quite a while, Aaron. That's a bold shout, but I think Donegal, they look a busted flush, I'd say.
Yeah, well, like when you think about it, like when, if you do have Derry and Dublin come up from Division 2, which we would expect, you would look at it and you see Cork on the rise at the minute, Meath on the rise, you'd expect Kildare to get their act together. So yeah, it definitely wouldn't be a foregone conclusion if they do go down. And it's mad with Donegal. I mean, it only feels like a couple of years ago they were challenging for an All-Ireland. They were a team that everyone expected to challenge for an All-Ireland. And fair enough, they've had Michael Murphy retire and Paddy McBrearty's injured. Maybe a few other lads have opted out. New management's come in, but there doesn't seem to be that new kick with Donegal, and they're under this management. And as you said, you look at it and you start to think, are some of the rumours true maybe about Donegal players not wanting to commit and not happy with management because it just doesn't look right there at the minute?
It doesn't, no. And you look at how Jim McGuinness, cemented the team together. There doesn't seem to be that with the Donegal management at the moment. And I don't know what it is. Is it just like I look at Donegal's players, like you look at Conor O'Donnell, Joel Bradley Walsh, Quayla McGonigal. There is some very, very good young players in Donegal at the moment. So I don't think quality is necessarily an issue. Ocean Gallen's another one, Niall O'Donnell, Michael Langan. There's some excellent players there, Kieran Thompson, another one as well. I think it's just they don't gel properly together. And these players, they don't step up at the big games, or they just don't want to play for Donegal. Simple as that. Like when you think about Caelan McColgan scored 3 points in the first game against Kerry. He's been utterly anonymous since then. I don't know what's gone on behind the scenes with Donegal. And I think Jamie Brennan's another example. Like he exploded onto the scene in 2019 or around that year anyway, and he's only scored a point a game or something like that. And it's very, very poor. Like even when Paddy McBrearty was fit, I think he scored 1 point in 2 games. That's not good enough as well for Paddy McBrearty standards. So I think Donegal are really they're gone for Division 1. I think I'd say it now. I know it's an early prediction, but I'd say it even now. Donegal are going to be getting relegated and they will be in Division 2 next season. I was actually thinking they could lose in Ulster in the first round against Down, but look, we'll get on to Down in Division 3 in a minute. Probably doesn't look that way, but they won't reach an Ulster final, no way, Donegal. So I think they could be in trouble. They could get a hammering or two in the All-Ireland series, even in the group stage. I think Donegal are really, really reeling. A lot of players leaving the panel, a lot of injuries, and it's come back to haunt them, Donegal. So it looks pretty bleak.
Yeah, and is it a case nearly of an end of an era for Donegal in some ways? Because when you think about it, pre-2011, before Jim McGuinness came in, like Donegal had gone a good while, from what I remember. I think 10 plus years without winning an Ulster title. And generally speaking, they weren't a dominant force in the 2000s, in Ulster, and they weren't a dominant. They didn't really come anywhere near an All Ireland, from what I remember as well. It was only sort of the All Ireland they won in the early 90s that really stuck to them. So when you think about it, although they're a big enough county, and as you said, they have a good few young players in there, like generally speaking, they haven't always been a consistent dominant force. Like I think since Tyrone from about the late 90s up until now have generally been a force. Like they've won Ulster every other couple of years. They're always a tough team to beat. They might have had a bit of a dip on their, the sort of middle patch of Mickey Hart. And some teams have dips and then they come back up a bit, like Armagh, for example, who, sort of went into the wilderness for a couple of years and had to go all the way down to Division 3. So you're looking at it from a Donegal perspective. It looks like an end of an era in many ways, with a lot of retirements, and players getting older, players opting out. And it does seem like that sort of Donegal era of winning Ulster titles, being competitive, going for All Irelands, seems to be gone.
Yeah, and I add to that actually, like Donegal pre-2011, in 2009, for example, Cork beat them 127-29 in the All-Ireland quarter-final. And that just shows you, like teams like Cork would easily beat Donegal that time. Like I think 2008 they were pretty bad. 2010 they got beaten by Armagh in the first round of the qualifiers. They were pretty poor then as well. Like I think Donegal, like it was kind of a surprise really when they came on the scene in 2011 under Jim McGuinness. Like I would have backed Kildare that All-Ireland quarter final because of Kildare having recent success and all that. But Donegal have had a good run at it. Like when you think about it, but when you think about it as well, Aaron, they haven't reached an All-Ireland semi-final since 2014. I know they had that brilliant win over Dublin, and that memorable win with Jim the Redeemer and Jim McGuinness, all that. But those are the facts. They haven't reached the last four in, what is it now, nearly 10 years? That's not good enough, really, for the size of Donegal. Really. I know they won a few Ulster titles, but the problem was getting to the latter stages of All-Ireland championships, and they don't seem to do that. And it seems to me, despite bringing through a lot of players, they're kind of living off the successes in 2012 under Jim McGuinness and 1992. That's about it. So, yeah, pretty successful year for Donegal in terms of producing players and all that, but in terms of success, debatable, I'd say, are.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I actually have Allianz League Sunday on here in the background, and funny enough, Monaghan and Donegal just on there. So they were actually highlighting Lochran in a wing back who put in a brilliant defensive display. So clearly, like with Monaghan, you're getting a good buy-in from a lot of younger players, and as you said, you're getting the experience with McManus, Jack McCarron coming back in as well, which is great to see. And actually, like looking at it, Monaghan's next two fixtures are against Roscommon and against Galway, and Tyrone's next two fixtures are against Kerry and Mayo. Now we know how Tyrone go against Kerry and Mayo. They beat them last year in the league, and of course famously beat them in 2021 in the championship. But it does nearly look like if Monaghan were to lose their next two matches, which look, they might get something, who knows, but that's going to be tough for Tyrone. So you're looking at it and thinking Monaghan could actually stay up here.
Yeah, I think so. I definitely think so. Like I would have said them bottom at the start of the year because I didn't know what Vinnie Gorey would have implemented to the team. I think Monaghan, like Donegal, what I was saying about Donegal with the talent drying up and everything, I thought it'd be the same with Monaghan. But when you look at actually their scoring stats, they're actually not bad. Like you're mentioning on Allianz Day Sunday there, they're highlighting a guy called Lochran. When you look at their scoring stats, indeed, like Stephen O'Hanlon and Micheál Bannigan have both got 8 points each. Conor McCarthy's got 1-8. Conor McManus coming back into the team today. Jack McCarron got 7 points. Like they still have very good players coming around. Like Darragh McAlarty's another good young player. They had the top scorer of the Sigurdsson Cup as well in David Garland. So Monaghan still have good players coming through the ranks. So I think, like, although they're past the years where they won Ulster titles on the back of the road in 13 and 15, I still think when you look at the talent coming through and the buy-in that Vinnie Gorey's got so far in the league, I think there's a good future in Monaghan football. Carl Gallagher is another good player they have as well coming through the ranks. So I think Monaghan, there's good state despite the fact that with the Hughes is retiring, McManus coming near the end as well. Rory Beggett could still go on for another few seasons. So There's no fear of him retiring. Conor Boyle's another good defender they have on the team. So I think Monaghan, Ronan Boyle's another one. So yeah, Monaghan, like when you name them, actually, Monaghan still have good players coming through the ranks, and it's kind of hard to believe because of the size of Monaghan, but they're still producing these players. It's almost like Roscommon. They're small counties in size, but they still produce excellent footballers. It's a credit to their county boards, in fairness to them. And I think counties like Donegal, Cork, Meath, Kildare can learn a lot from what Monaghan and Roscommon are doing at the moment.
Absolutely, absolutely. Before we run on to Division 2, we'll just have a quick look at the league table and how it obviously looks after 3 games. So we've got Roscommon on top there with 6 points, Mayo in second with 4, Galway there with 3, Armagh with 3 as well, and then Kerry, Tyrone, Monaghan and Donegal all level there on 2 points, but Donegal sit bottom with a minus 15 score difference. So still certainly all to play for, only 2 points separate 8th place and 2nd place, but obviously not looking too good there from a Donegal perspective. Moving on to Division 2, we'll start with the game that we obviously watched earlier, that we did a watch along for, and obviously did a reaction for after the game as well. So maybe we won't discuss it too much because we'll be repeating ourselves ever so slightly. But obviously a few hours now since the game and since Dublin's victory away to Cork, and I suppose like how does it feel now? Like, I mean, as you said, like plenty of positives to take from a Cork perspective, and from a Dublin perspective. Like, yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about it, to be honest.
Yeah, look, I have the same feeling really. Like before the game, I was thinking, a 6-point margin would be an excellent showing, and to put in a good performance against a very good side like Dublin would be a stepping stone, and we'll see where this Cork team are at. And judging by this performance, I think Cork are definitely on the right road to recovery. I don't know, would you agree with that, Aaron? I think we're definitely looking at the players coming through, looking at the way we challenged Dublin throughout the day. Like there was the games in the Super 8s in 2019 and the quarterfinal in 2022 where Cork performed well, but they were still hammered out the gate. Today we performed well, but we were just so disappointed to lose by 2 points. And I suppose that's a good showing from Cork, I think. The only thing is the elephant in the room, the wides, 11 in total for Cork today, and that killed us. But another thing which killed us, I think, one moment of the game where Maguire got sent off, then Dublin get the next 4 points, and then Dublin start to pull away. I know Matty Taylor got a goal back after that, but that was a crucial moment in the game, and maybe they'll talk about it in League Sunday tonight, that it wasn't the right decision. But look, Cork will move on to the next few games, and I think after this now, it's imperative from Cork point of view, we have to beat Limerick, Louth and Clare. If we don't beat them 3 teams, anything less than 6 points is a disappointment, in my opinion anyway. It's a step backwards. We have to win those 3 games and go for the next while. But as for Dublin, I'm sure, Aaron, you're very disappointed with the performance, but it's a win on Lee's side. You're on 6 points. You're one of the few teams on 6 points. You're going to the next game against Clare and Croke Park. That's probably going to be 8. So I think you'll be pretty happy with how the league is going results-wise. But performances are a bit questionable. The ones we've watched on TV against Kildare and Cork especially weren't great from Dublin point of view. But I suppose one positive before I hand over to you about your rant about Dublin or whatever is Jack McCaffrey coming back into the panel. That's a positive, and James McCarthy coming back as well. So I suppose there is positives for Dublin, but the performance level has to improve as the year goes on if you're going to challenge for the All-Ireland.
Yeah, like I just think like when you look at the Kildare game, we could have easily lost that if Kildare had a bit better shooting. If Kildare had gone for it a bit more and put the the bottle in a little bit more, or gone for a throw, I think they could have beat us. And then obviously against Limerick, fair enough, you're playing a Division 3 side, but even at that, like they actually gave us a bit of a game in the second half and brought the lead back. And from what I heard, Dublin were fairly sort of just very placid in the second half against Limerick. And obviously here, like it was like there were some good moments. I felt like Con O'Callaghan looked all right, looked impressive. David O'Hanlon, as you said, between the sticks, huge positive. Some big saves from him. I think if it wasn't for him, I think we would have got beat. Obviously seen Jack McCaffrey come back, and we've seen his explosiveness go past 2 players and put it over the bar. James McCarthy coming off the bench. Like, there is positives. Dean Rock, I thought, looked lively, but albeit didn't do enough from play. Kieran Kilkenny, very, very quiet. But yeah, from a Dublin perspective, like, because we're playing lower level opposition in Cork and Kildare, it's hard to know. Like, obviously defensively we were very all over the place, but like, Cork did play very well at the same time. So it's one of them where, although we weren't great, like, we still won the game, and Cork did still play very well. So at the same time, there is a positive there, but I think there just has to be a lot that needs to be worked on by the time the championship comes around. Like, the same sort of abject league performances that I've seen from Dublin in the league last year are still there this year, and that's the concern.
And another concern, actually, you mentioned Kieran Kilkenny, and that reminded me, look at the scoring charts out of 3 games. Kieran Kilkenny scored 1 point in 3 games. I don't know, that would be a worry, I'd say, for a Dublin supporter, that he isn't contributing as much. And he looked very, very quiet today. I don't think we even mentioned his name on the live stream.
No, we didn't actually, no.
Yeah, he was unbelievably quiet. Like, Paddy O'Cuffey, Burns still a good shoots about him. David O'Hanlon was outstanding, and I'd say it again, like, you wouldn't have got out of Park Heave if it wasn't for David O'Hanlon. What a performance! Like, he saved a shot from Chris Jones in the first half, and that save from Brian Hurley at the end. We only noticed it when we watched the replays afterwards, but the tip onto the post at that stage of the game, what a save! I have to say, very good save. On Conor O'Connell, he scored 10 points in 3 games. 9 points from play, so that's 3 points from play again. Like, he's still contributing well. You might argue, yes, it's against Limerick, Kildare, Cork. It's not going to be big challenges, but it still kind of shows that Con is still lively and buzzing around the place. Dean Rock is still scoring from frees. Cormac Costello. But I think the main concern about Dublin is the way of letting goals so easily. I know it was a good play from Owen McSweeney and Matty Taylor, but the space allowed, especially for the Taylor goal, was ridiculous, really. All the Dublin players seemed to converge on Rory Dean, who hadn't passed it inside to Matty Taylor, who was in the back of the net. It was very poor defensively from Dublin. And the other concern, as we mentioned before, is Kieran Kilkenny. His scoring rates seem to be going down, and that is a large concern for Dublin going forward.
Yeah, and obviously we discussed this a little bit earlier, and I'm sure it's going to be topic of conversation maybe on Allianz League Sunday, and it will be a topic of conversation all over social media. But the officiating was very, very odd as we sort of reacted to it live. Obviously, the second yellow card for Ian Maguire, the second yellow card for Lee Gannon as well. Like, just strange because, as I was saying, like, there's been plenty of games where heavier challenges have gone in and the referee hasn't given any yellow cards. So yeah, it was a little bit strange. Now, there is a lot of people saying you should never referee again and all this stuff, and I don't know if I do agree with that, to be perfectly honest. But I think at the same time, like, it does confuse me that some referees are very soft and then some referees completely go over the top and start dishing out yellow cards left, right, and centre. Like, there doesn't seem to be much consistency amongst officials, which for us as supporters and for the players, that's what you want. That's at least what you want.
You mentioned consistency there. I largely thought, like, it was the wrong calls for the red cards, but at least the ref, we said it in the live stream, at least he was consistent to an extent. Like, when you think about it, the Maguire yellow card, very harsh. And even, like, looking back, Colin Parks had put out a tweet after the game. The Maguire first yellow card. How could you get that as a yellow card? Seriously, it's very, very strange indeed. Lee Gannon's, like, I said it in the live stream, ordinarily, that would never be a second yellow and a red card because Powter kind of went down a bit too easily at that point. But the fact that Maguire got sent off, the ref had no choice, I think, just to be consistent. But all we wanted really was, to be officiated properly. Like, Maguire didn't deserve to get sent off, neither did Lee Gannon, leave it at that. A lot of people they were actually mentioning on social media the game earlier today, Armagh Roscommon. If the ref implemented the same decisions in that game, there would have been, I'd say, 5 red cards, 6 red cards. Yeah. So we don't want that. We really don't want that in the game. Like you probably thought the same. I thought the same. It was largely a not dirty game at all. There was no brawls or anything. I think it was a clean enough game played by 2 teams that wanted to play football. So I don't know. I thought they were very, very harsh red cards anyway. But the stuff about saying he shouldn't referee again, look, he made a mistake today. Move on. Hopefully he'll learn from his mistakes now today, the referee, and we'll move forward. But look, before we leave the discussion about the referee, he wouldn't have implicated the result today. I don't think so anyway, because Cork had 11 points. If Cork then put them points over, maybe we could talk about the referee. But the fact we missed so many chances, the Cork fans shouldn't really blame the referee for this game. We probably should be blaming ourselves for not shooting accurately.
Yeah, moving on then, it was Derry 2-15, Meath 1-7. This was on a Saturday evening in Owenbeg. Very, very comfortable and comprehensive win here from a Derry perspective. Meath, like if this was a boxing match, they would have been knocked out after a couple of minutes. I mean, this was over really after about 10 minutes and wasn't even a contest. Reality check for Meath, and Derry showed that they're just levels above a lot of the competition in this division at the minute.
Yeah, Derry looked excellent last night. Very, very good. Like Niall Turner, very good. Shane McGuigan scored 3 points for play. Like out of that total, they scored 213 for play, which probably just showed their dominance. Meath, I think they had about 4 or 5 shots in the first half. That's very, very poor. Very poor from Meath. They just didn't have a spark last night. I wonder, did they miss Matthew Costello and Shane Walsh? And but it looks the last night they definitely did. And they kind of didn't have a plan B either. When you think about it, like they were going for goals and stuff like that. They were trying to weave their way through. Like it worked against Cork when they didn't implement the defensive system. Like Cork were more defensive today. They learned from their mistakes. But they were open against Meath, and Meath exploited it. Meath exploited the openness of Clare as well. But with Derry, this is a different type of kettle of fish. Like Derry were basically going to put men behind the ball and break. Like Meath were just not. They weren't kind of prepared for it. I don't think it's a reason to be, down about Meath football. I think they have made some good strides so far in the league, but it just shows last night Derry were absolutely outstanding. And even the young players coming through, Owen McAvoy, 19 years of age at fullback, he seems to be a star for the future. Christian McCaig is good as always, and Niall Turner very good. Benny Heron, 100% shot accuracy last night, excellent performance from him. Niall Turner, Ethan Doherty scoring 1-2. So Derry seem to be cooking well and seem to be going up to Division 1 with consummate ease. But for Meath, as you said, much like a reality check, and it kind of shows you need to have a plan B to progress even further.
Yeah, and looking at Meath in the opening 2 games, like I mean, they were behind for large parts against Cork, and then obviously a couple of late goals, and they turned it around. And against Clare, like it was a close game throughout, but they just about in the end got the edge, and it was the goals that sort of put them through. And looking at it points wise, like just 4 points they'd kicked after 50 minutes. Like they kicked their 4th point in around the 50th minute, which isn't really good enough, you'd have to say, from a side that is supposed to be battling for promotion, or what people have thought have been battling for promotion. So is it a case that this kind of result shows us that although they, I think we can go without saying they definitely won't get relegated from Division 2, but they're certainly not at the level of, a promotion contender just yet.
Yeah, this is quite interesting. Like I was thinking this after the Dublin game. Like I know Cork performed well against Dublin. Meath looked out of their depth against Derry. I'm just thinking, have Cork actually improved over the last few weeks, or have Meath got worse since that game against Cork? I don't know really. It's an interesting point of discussion, but look, I just feel like I know I kind of overreacted really after the match they won. It was just Meath got the goals, and Cork didn't get a goal. They had 1 goal chance through Sean Powter, and Colin McCallum didn't take it, and Meath won the game. But I think in terms of scoring points and all over the field, I know Meath beat Cork, but I think Cork are still a better team than Meath. I don't know if people agree with that in the comments below, but I just think Meath rely on goals too often. I think, and it kind of showed over the last few seasons as well. I think there was one season where they scored 7 against Wicklow in 1 game. Like they score a good load of goals, but the question is the points. And one particular Leinster final under Andy McAdee, actually, they scored 4 points in 1 game against Dublin. That's not good enough either. So I think they need to add more to their game if they're going to progress even further. But I think Colin O'Rourke is still, he's building from a base, like they were saying on League Saturday last night. that O'Rourke, he's still a lot to work on, and I still think he'll get a reality check out of this result. But like, it's an interesting point of debate, see who's better, Cork or Meath, despite Meath's result. But I actually think Cork were in a better place than Meath, despite the result on match day one.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I suppose moving on from that, then obviously a massive, massive win for Kildare away to Clare. 15 points to 16 is how it finished. Like, just looking at it on Scorpio, they scored 3 points in the final 3 minutes. 2 frees from Neil Flynn, and Daniel Flynn got himself a point there as well. And they actually scored 4 points. David Hoyland got on the score sheet there as well. So, I mean, very, very close game, and Kildare, by the narrowest of margins, get out of jail, get the victory. I mean, things could have looked very, very bad if they had lost this one.
Yeah, it's a crucial result for Kildare. Like, I know I've seen the Scorpio app as well, and the Twitter. I was saying Clare are going to win this game. Like, Clare look well clear to do it, but suddenly Kildare pull it out of the bag. It's kind of a result that Kildare needed, because of the last few games against Cork, they were kind of a disaster, and against Dublin, they were disappointed to come out of Croke Park with nothing. But this game against Clare, it might not have been a vintage performance. We'll see on Allianz League Sunday, of course, but it might not have been pretty. But Kildare still got the 2 points, and that's all you could say. Very good performance from them. And going into Derry next week, like, they have Derry and Newbridge next week. Like, a lot of people would have said Kildare or Goners, like, if they lose this game against Clare. So it was crucial they got the 2 points, and they did. Fair play to them. Very good result for them. I'm sure some fella in your comments actually said on after match day 2, you said Cork will go down 1 week, then Kildare the next week. I don't want to get that comment again, but I'm going to say another team. It's Clare. Look, I think. Look at the first few games. Loud, they were lucky to get out. The second game against Meath, they scored more points but still lost, and they were in control for large parts of this game and still lost the game. Their next few games now, you mentioned it off air, they've Dublin and Derry in the next 2 games. They then have Cork, who are seen to be going on an upward curve, a small bit as well. So I know Clare and Colin Collins, it means survival, but like, I don't know. I don't think Clare are a bad team. They usually survive. But look at the next few fixtures for Clare. I'd be worried for them. I really would be worried that they go down to Division 3, and this could be finally the year where they succumb to relegation. It could be, but I still think they'd have enough to survive over Loud.
Yeah, like, I mean, like, as you were saying, and as we were saying off air, like, I mean, they do have a lot of players missing, with University of Limerick, who obviously played in the Sigerson Cup during the week. So I'm sure when they get some of them lads back in, they'll look even stronger than what they did. But yeah, like, 2 tough games coming up next from a Clare perspective. And like, when you look at it, probably going to be between them, Loud, and Kildare, Loud, and Clare. It's going to be between them 3 for that sort of final spot to stay in the league. I think Limerick are probably going to get cut adrift, but Kildare, like, I mean, look, in fairness, like, they showed some amount of bottle to come through and score 4 points in injury time.
I think a lot of people in those counties will be hurt that Cork aren't in that list, considering, like, Cork are on 2 points. I know they performed well against Dublin, but they're still on 2 points. So you have to add them to the list as well, possibly. So yeah, it's going to be a difficult one. You have to say Limerick are gone, without a doubt. I kind of overestimated them. Loud are in we'll get on to Loud in a minute, but I think Loud are in a situation where no one expects them to stay up. They'll park the bus and then make it tough for opposition. So I think Loud could be a very tricky opponent for anybody coming down. I think it's Meath against Loud next. Correct me if I'm wrong now, but that could be a tricky game for Meath, I think. So, and for Kildare, it was a crucial win today. Like, they've Derry next. They might get something out of that. Newbridge, but I still think Derry are levels above. They're an outstanding team. They're Ulster champions for a reason. The next few games, like, Kildare still have to play Limerick. They'll win that, no doubt. They still have to play Meath and Newbridge. That could be a deciding game for Kildare, that game. And I think it's a rivalry. So Kildare will be up for that, no doubt about it. There'll be a load riding on the game, and there'll be a rivalry there as well. So I think Kildare, look, I think who do they have? They have Loud, Limerick after the Derry game now, Loud, Limerick and Meath. So I think if they win 2 out of them 3 games, I think they should be fine. I really think they should be fine to stay up. Loud would be a bit tricky, but I still think they, player for player, Kildare should have the quality to get through, but Loud will obviously park the bus and try their best to halt them. But 4 points, would that be enough? I think they'll definitely beat Limerick. I still think they need to beat either Meath or Loud to stay in the division, and that's no easy feat, but I think it's well around the realms of possibility for Kildare.
Yeah, and as you were saying there, it was Loud 115, Limerick 113. Loud get their first win in Division 2. Close game in the end. There was times in the game where Limerick are leading, and you were thinking maybe Limerick might go on and get the victory. But Loud in the end come out with the victory. A couple of late points in there from Conal McCall, Tommy Doran, and Samuel Roy with 6 points, and young Darragh McConnon actually in there with 3 points as well. So big result for Loud.
Huge results, yeah, and it seems like Samuel Roy has a partner in crime now in McConnon. Very good player. Like, I noticed him in the club championship. He was one of the top scorers from play in that for RD St. Mary's with, I think, 3-7 overall. So excellent showing, and he was always going to come up to the plate for Loud. So very good showing from him. They seem to be getting scores all over the field as well, and for most parts of that game, I was looking on Twitter, etc., and keeping track of it, and it seemed like Limerick could get a win. You know, they could have even beat Loud. So I think for Loud to get out with a win was crucial. It might not have been the best performance. Like, they performed well in the first 2 games against Clare and Derry and got nothing. And by the looks of it today, they performed pretty abjectly and they still got the win. So I think Loud will be happy. They'll go into the next games going in under the radar. And I still think Loud, I know they'll be favourites to go down, but they will go down fighting. I think they will get a few wins here and there. I still think, who do they have to play now? I think they have to play Meath in the next game. So that could be a tricky game for Meath. They still have to play Kildare, Cork, and Dublin in the last game. That's a write-off. So the next 3 games will be crucial for Loud. Get one win out of those games. Possibly survival could be on the wall for Mickey Hartley's side.
Absolutely. And I suppose before we finish up, we'll just before we finish up on Division 2, we'll just have a look at the league table there as well. That's Division 3. So I don't know. I think Division 2 is failing on me here. This is the type of content you definitely don't get on the Sunday game when you're trying to get the division table up. There it is there. So we've got Derry and Dublin on top with 6 points. We've Meath with 4 points. Cork, Louth, Clare and Kildare all on 2 points. And Limerick there with nothing so far from 3 games. And as you can see, very much being cut adrift there with minus 23 in score difference as well. Just run through some results from Division 3 quickly. So we Tipperary 14 points, Antrim 119, Fermanagh 214, down 310. So huge win for Fermanagh there. Cavan get a victory as well. 3 wins on the spin for them. They beat Longford 119 to 11 points. And Westmeath late on, a couple of late goals from what I heard there. They beat Offaly 212 to 12 points. So in terms of any of those results, anyone stand out or what are you thinking there?
I suppose the Antrim one against Tipperary really stands out. Very good performance from them. And first win under the reign of Andy McEntee. Cavan eased the victory, really. I think gives the other results. Westmeath got a crucial win over Offaly, so a very good result for them. And some interesting results in Division 3. And you'd have to say, no, it'd probably be Cavan, Westmeath. Like, I think the main result was the Fermanagh Down game. Like, I was watching a bit of this on the BBC iPlayer before the action from Armagh and Roscommon kicked off, and Fermanagh in the first half were outstanding. Like, they stood up to Down very well, and I thought they were excellent without Sean Quigley in the team. Obviously, Sean Quigley got that late goal to win it, but very good performance for Fermanagh, and then good young players. Kieran Donnelly seems to be gelling that team quite well together. And I mentioned Down at the start of the show when potentially beating Donegal in the Ulster Championship, but look at the performance today. Maybe it's a reality check for Down, I'd say. They were unbeaten going into this game, unbeaten in all games, including McKenna Cup, and they got shown up by Fermanagh today. I don't know, was it overconfidence? Was it? I don't know what it was, but it just shows Down still have a bit to go yet. A bit like me this weekend. I think a bit of a reality check for Down.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, they beat Antrim and Tipperary, 2 sides who are going to be more or less battling relegation, in my opinion. No, Antrim, as you said there, looked very good against Tipperary. That was a big result. But like I just don't. I've seen some people say Down are going to maybe push for Ulster, and they're kind of comparing them a bit to Derry when they were in Division 3 a couple of years ago, and that Down are rising back up through the ranks. And look, they've a lot of great players. Obviously, some of those players have played for Kilcoo and been key to their All-Ireland club success. But I just don't think they're quite at the level just yet. And I think to say that Down are pushing for Ulster or a shoe-in for promotion, like I just don't quite see it just yet, in my opinion.
Yeah, I actually seen them finishing top of this division because maybe you know yourself and I know myself. Kevin McGorty on the J Mac podcast was definitely hyping up the praise to Conor Laverty, saying he was one of the best managers in Ireland, and I kind of fell for the hype, to be honest with you. Like I know he did well at Kilcoo, but this was still going to be a major project at Down, and it probably showed today they still have a bit to go. Fermanagh, on the other hand, we criticise Down and stuff like that for losing today, but we have to give credit to Fermanagh. What a win. Like, in fairness to them, a lot of people were doubting Fermanagh to not even get promoted, but they're well in the midst of a promotion fight now with themselves, Down, Offaly, Cavan and Westmeath. I think there's a clear top 5 in this Division 3 campaign, and then there's a clear bottom 3, and 2 will go down. I'd say Longford and Tip. Look, the front runners at the moment, that Longford-Antrim game will be very crucial to see who stays up in the league. So, yeah, some very interesting weeks ahead. So, Fermanagh, I think, are on the right road maybe to make a promotion push.
100%. Just looking at the Division 3 table then, so Cavan sitting on top with 6 points from 3 games. They're looking fairly nailed on for promotion at this moment in time, you'd have to say. And then we've got Westmeath, Fermanagh, Down and Offaly all level on 4 points. Antrim with 2 points, and Tipperary and Longford with 3 defeats from 3 so far. Looking at the Division 4 results then, Sligo get a victory against Waterford, 21 points to 13. Big win for Wexford, actually. They beat Leitrim 19 points to 15. And Carlow beaten by Laois by a scoreline of 2-8 to 117. And Wicklow get the victory at home to London, 116 to 1-9. So back-to-back wins for both Wicklow and Sligo. Obviously, big results for them. Laois make it 3 wins from 3. Carlow actually putting up a bit of a fight there, and that game was actually quite close from keeping an eye on Scorpio. And I suppose Wexford, I mean, that's probably maybe one of the stories of the week. I mean, you do look at Wexford and the history of Wexford football and the players that they have, and you think, well, they should be beating Leitrim, but considering how poor they've looked for the last couple of years and considering the rise of Andy Moran's Leitrim, it's a result we wouldn't have expected, but there we go.
Exactly, and you mentioned this on my podcast during the week. We don't know what Wexford team is going to turn up. Like, it's been that way throughout every year, really. Like, they have very good players like Ben Brosnan, what's his name, Sean Nolan, I think his name is, Pádraig Hughes from that DCU team. They still have some good players coming through the ranks of Wexford, and they have a good football history. Obviously, all of the semi-finals in 2008. But the problem was consistency with Wexford, and I thought Leitrim, to be honest with you, would win that game. Keith Burns still got scored 10 points today out of a possible 15. And it probably just shows we go on about Keith Burns a bit too much on this channel and stuff like that, but he's just a superb player when you think about it. And speaking of scoring stats, I think Paul Kingston scored 122 in 3 games for Laois, and it probably just shows he's up this level from Division 4. Definitely. Evan O'Carroll is doing well in this division as well. So Laois, 3 wins from 3, very good achievement for them. And before we leave Division 4, actually, I want to talk about Waterford. They put up a huge challenge to Sligo. In fairness to them, fair play to them. Like, we batter Waterford every week, saying they're not good enough. Football's not a stronghold in Waterford. And Aoife Fitzgerald might have taken those comments in the media and whatnot to heart, maybe. So, good performance from Waterford, and they put it up to Sligo throughout the game. I was looking through that in Scorpio, and I was thinking, could Waterford pull off a surprise here away to Sligo? But alas, Sligo pulled away in the end. But yeah, fair play to Waterford for making a game of it.
100%. Just looking at the Division 4 table, then I'm not too sure where it's gone. I think we'll just leave that one. But it is obviously Laois who are on top there with 6 points. And Leitrim, I think, are in there with 4 as well. So we'll obviously have to wait and see what happens there. But Matthew, cheers very much for coming on. Much appreciated. I suppose maybe what was your moment of the week?
Jeez, moment of the week. It's a tough one. Like McCaffrey coming on, and maybe for Cork and Dublin. I'm trying to think now. Over to the week. I think you can't beat McCaffrey coming on, to be honest. McCaffrey coming on in Parky Heath the first time in 1,000 days or something. Fair play to him coming back to the team, and that was the main story despite the Maguire sending off and stuff like that. So I think moment of the week was McCaffrey coming back onto the pitch for the first time in a long while.
Yeah, no, I'd agree as well. And I think seeing that explosiveness when he went past 2 Cork players, put the ball over the bar, it was sort of it was like bringing you back to the good old days. So it was great. It was definitely great to see him back. And we do have the Division 4 table here now. So as we can see there, Laois on top with 6 points, Leitrim and Sligo in there with 4, Wicklow, Wexford and Carlow in there with 3 points. So definitely the promotion race still very much wide open, one would say. Matthew, cheers very much for coming on. Make sure to check out the GA Statsman podcast when you get a chance. And cheers very much for coming on.
Thanks very much, Aaron.